Hello, everybody. Today we are doing a special podcast event. Today I am going to rank, now that the season is done, NASCAR drivers. So we're going to rank NASCAR drivers today, and it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of good thoughts. So first of all, it's good to note that I'm only ranking full-time Cup Series NASCAR drivers, but it's going to be a good time. And yeah, let's get going with it. So first of all, I'm going to start from the bottom to the top. So starting in 34th is John Hunter Nemechek. There's not a lot that he's notable for. He's definitely had maybe a couple lead laps this season, but that goes for everybody. I mean, even if you're a rookie, you can easily get some laps in the lead. Next is Justin Haley. There's not a lot for him. He switched teams this season, so that's definitely notable. Corey LaJoie. So he had a pretty interesting event earlier this season. His car got upside down and he slid quite a ways upside down. It was quite the shocking event. Daniel Hemrick. He's a pretty new driver. I think he's a rookie. It's been probably an okay season for him. He can probably definitely keep going in the Cup Series level. Eric Jones. He's been in NASCAR quite a while, but there's not a lot that he's done that is noticeable this season. He's had a pretty slow season. Haven't seen him around a lot. Josh Berry, he's been doing okay this season. I mean, he's a rookie, so yeah, not a lot to expect from him. Ryan Preece, he has probably just a decent season. He was in the top 5 at Martinsville in the playoffs. And then Noah Gragson, he's pretty new, but I think he's scored a couple top 10s. Todd Gilliland, he's been doing, I guess, okay this season. He's still pretty much at the bottom, and he could definitely use some help getting up there. Carson Hocevar, he's pretty new as well. And then you have Zane Smith. Zane Smith, he actually had a noticeable time this season. So the most noticeable race that he was in was the race at Tennessee, where he finished side by side with Joey Logano in second place. So that's pretty cool that a rookie who's having a rough season was able to get second place because of a lot of overtimes. Next is Michael McDowell. The most notable thing this season from him was his almost finish at Talladega. So he was in the lead on the final lap, but he went to block the high lane. There's 3 lanes. He went to block the high lane. He went back down below to block the low lane, but then he spun and there was a big wreck. Tyler Reddick pulled out of the middle lane for the win. Next is Ricky Stenhouse. He actually won at the Yellowwood 500, so that's his most noticeable thing that he's done this season. Austin Dillon. He won the season, but it was a pretty dirty win. He spun multiple people to win. He spun Denny Hamlin and others, so definitely not very nice driving from him. Kyle Busch, he was in the 3-wide finish at Atlanta in the spring of this year. Next is Bubba Wallace. He doesn't really have much on his resume for this season. He just had, I guess, consistent standings in the middle. Next is Ross Chastain. He actually had a win this season. Same thing with Chris Buescher, who is in 17th. Next is Ty Gibbs. An okay season from him. He made the pole at Charlotte. Definitely pretty notable. Next is Harrison Burton. He won at Daytona, just not the Daytona 500, but it's very interesting. He kept off Kyle Busch for the win, and yeah, it was very interesting seeing the highlights for that. Next is Chase Briscoe. He had a win this season. This is the second win of his career, and also the last season with Stewart-Haas Racing. Stewart-Haas Racing is pretty much done this season now, so he'll be moving on to Joe Gibbs Racing and replacing Martin Truex Jr. In 13th, we have Brad Keselowski. He won this season, so that's definitely notable. He had a pretty bad win drought there. Austin Cindric, he won as well. He's in 12th. For my ranking, he won at, I think it was Worldwide Technology Racing. Then Daniel Suarez, he won in the 3-wide finish at Atlanta. That was really interesting. Martin Truex Jr., he's been having a really rough season, but he was still able to make it to the playoffs. So decent performance from him, but it definitely could be better. He had a lot of misfortune this season. Next is Alex Bowman in 9th place. He won at Chicago Road Course earlier this year, so that's definitely noticeable. He won later in the season than many of the other Hendrick Motorsports drivers, but that's okay. He still got in to get a win. Same thing with Chase Elliott, who is in 8th. He won at Texas, so that's the most notable thing from him. Denny Hamlin, he almost made it to the round of 4. He made it solid into the round of 8. He's in 7th for my rankings. He won at Bristol, Richmond, and Dover, so very noticeable performance by Hamlin. Same thing with Christopher Bell. He's had some wins this season. He won most noticeably at the Coca-Cola 600. Tyler Reddick, he won at Talladega earlier this year, as I've mentioned already. He also had some noticeable performances. Most noticeable of them was when he won at Homestead, Miami, and he's in the just barely 5th place in my ranking. So he just barely made the top 5 as far as drivers of the season, as far as my rankings. So next is William Byron, 3 wins. One of them, most noticeably, the Daytona 500. Kyle Larson, even though he didn't make it to the round of 4, he still won 6 races this season, pretty much the most out of any other driver, so that was really a good performance by him. He won in the closest finish in Cup Series history at Kansas Motor Speedway earlier this year, just barely edging out Chris Buescher. And in 2nd place, drum roll please, is Ryan Blaney. He won at Martinsville, securing his way into the playoffs with a win. He also won at Iowa and Pocono. And in 1st is Joey Logano. Incredible performance by him in the second half of the season. In my opinion, he was struggling in the first half of the season, so it's good that he came back to win at Tennessee and Atlanta, and he won at Phoenix, so he was the winner. He edged out Ryan Blaney by just over a car length, so that was really interesting to see. Out of all of the full-time drivers, that is my list from last place to first place. These rankings are not based off of positions as far as playoffs, but they're based on performance, who did really well this season, or who struggled this season. So yeah, that's how it's ranked. And if you have any thoughts on it, please share that always. Yes. All right, that's all I have for this special. I will see you guys later. Hello, this is Wyatt, the co-host of WNC Sports Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking or subscribing.